I'm Suzi Landolfi, and welcome to Be Crazy Well. Now, why would a therapist say that? Because we all have mental health struggles, even therapists. The good news is we have so much more information about how we can be crazy well. On my podcast, we don't focus on what's wrong with us. We want to know what happened to us. We're going to explore how trauma affected us, both negatively and positively. That's right. I said positively. It's called post-traumatic growth, and it's a real thing. Be Crazy Well will share mental health wellness practices, the newest mental health research, and most importantly, how we all get to create the person we deserve to be and the life we deserve to live. So join the mental health evolution and be crazy well.
To see within is to know yourself.
Because I know you so well, I don't have to start formally. I can just start talking to you. So I'm late because people in California don't know how to drive in the rain. But us Boston people, we know that there's a gas pedal and a brake. And that's all you need for the rain, like any other road surface.
I just had this conversation this week with some students up in Pitt. I get asked to speak at the gunsmith school every year, and I said, this is why I know that we've probably had some alien technology, because literally Americans still can't stay out of the left lane and we still can't merge. So how did we make stealth technology?
I have no idea. How did we do anything?
Exactly.
Right? So you and I are blue collar. We're usually east of the Mississippi. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a whole nother culture. Like this whole nother culture.
Well, we were the first.
We were the first. That's right. We were the first oppressors and genocidal people for the native people. We were the first ones to not appreciate them and steal their land. We were the first one. Oh my God, I'm so inappropriate. I love it. And true.
Yes.
Native friends appreciate that about me and my native stepfather. So everybody, I can't even tell you why it's taken me so long to get this guy on the podcast. Probably because on some level, he's going to find this really funny. I'm not intimidated. I am in awe. Now, I don't get in awe. Like I had Snoop Dogg as a client. I've had very famous people as not for coaching, not for therapy. So I'm not breaking any HIPAA rule here. But so, I don't get really in awe of people, although he was pretty cool and he's very smart. He's very smart and his wife's smarter. Okay. So you, on the other hand, JD, John D. Morris, every time you get on the MVP huddle, every time you say something, I watch people's jaw get a little slack, and their eyes get a little wider, and they're like, holy shit. This guy not only has wisdom, he had some fucked up shit happen to him. And then he did some. And he's more cool than any human being on the planet with all of that. And that's the truth. So, and I don't usually swear too much on my podcast, but you deserve that because of the intensity of it. So everybody, I couldn't think of anybody more crazy well than John Morris, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. And then I'm going to ask you, John, to share your past and your present, and then we'll even go into the future. But if anybody can help convince people that they are worth it, that simple statement, that they are always worth it, you are the man that can do that.
Oh my gosh. You are entirely too kind. This is like, this is surreal. I can't believe I'm doing this with you. John David Morris. It seems like everywhere I've gone since the early 80s when I tried college before the Army, there have been too many Johns. So, you know, my second unit and duty station in the Army, I walked in literally the first day and there was at least one other John, and they're like, you've got to come up with a nickname. And so it's literally, you know, over the years, people think it's cool, Jack Daniels. It should have been at one point, but no, it's just my first and middle name. And I go back and forth with that, you know, should I be John? Should I be JD? JD was the military and shooting guy. Anyway, for another day. I am 59 years old and I am so happy and grateful. And oh, you're going to make me tear up. You know, I got this crying thing going. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, emotions just come out. The body keeps the score. There's a book about it. I had a good upbringing. Born in California, San Diego, Coronado. Dad was in the Navy. So I am born of steelworkers back east, farmers back east, and military, my mom and dad. Mom in the Army as a dental hygienist, and my dad as a first Air Force and then as a sailor. Unfortunately, their relationship was doomed from the beginning, and I wouldn't find out about that until years later, which goes deep into some mental health stuff. So at some point I grew up without a father. They got divorced and we moved back east to the tip of West Virginia where I grew up from like the age 3.5. And, you know, I was a country boy and we tried to keep it simple. Those farmers and steel workers put me under their thumb, and I had a high level of accountability and do everything right and do it their way. That also backfired as a teenager too. So, and then that relationship with my mom soured. And all I wanted to do after high school was run away. And the mills were closing. I think family could have got me in there, but I just wanted to get away. I wanted something else. I didn't want to, you know, be the family that just stuck around. And I don't say that in a bad way, but I've seen where that is an issue across the country. And so I tried college first, right here where I'm sitting. We've moved back, well, to West Virginia, but I'm in Morgantown. I came to WVU as a young, oh my gosh, naive country boy, and I got my butt handed to me in the bars. And, you know, a couple years later, it was a good idea to go to the Army or probably jail or even worse. So, and I didn't look back. You know, Suzi gets on me for not talking about myself, but, you know, it started from as soon as some of those restrictions and restrictive people and under the thumb people, and, you know, even the drill sergeant said, you know, we're going to make this hard for you. But they just said, all you got to do is do this stuff. And, you know, and it didn't seem hard. And I excelled. And by the end of basic training in AIT, you know, I was a distinguished honor grad. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know you got awards. You know, it's like all I did was graduate basic training in AIT. I was a combat engineer. Went to jump school, went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and again, never looked back. They said, literally, you know, do you want to keep doing hard stuff? And I'm like, well, yeah, isn't that why I'm here? So the whole jumping out of planes thing was, you know, I loved it, even though it hurt. And, you know, I eventually went on to free fall after I joined SF, but just the excitement and the camaraderie. I mean, it filled that void that I thought that I was lacking in the upper Ohio Valley when I left there. And it came with, you know, a lot of catch-22s, hard lessons, but I was young and dumb, and I'm going to just live. And we work hard, we play hard. So every day, you know, in the conventional Army, every day after 4:30, you know, pretty much all the young guys that aren't married get off and drink. And that's what I did for 3-4 years up until the Gulf War. I went to the Gulf War with that unit and had a couple horrific incidents. And even though it seemed like that was probably the only time in my 21-year military career that we actually did some grief counseling and talking to one another and maybe therapists, psychologists, but it was very short-lived. But man, did I bring back a lot of baggage from the Gulf War. And I didn't see it for myself. I had already made the decision to go to Army Special Forces, and I was getting ready for selection, but my drinking my recreational drinking, I was probably already an alcoholic by definition. But my day drinking had turned like a 180. I just could not function without beer. Off duty, I was still able to hold it together and work at high levels in the military, even in special forces. So went selection, went to the qualification course, went to language school, and then reported in late 92 to Fort Campbell, Kentucky in 5th Special Forces Group. That was my dream. I mean, what do you want to do? It's funny, we didn't have the term operator back then. Well, another unit had the term operator. So it's just like, oh my God. I mean, my mentors had grabbed me before I went to, SF mentors had grabbed me at Fort Bragg. And I talk to young people now, and it's like, these guys were Mac v. Sog. And they had one way of doing things. They're like, you'll do this stuff this way and you'll thank us later. And damn if it wasn't true. They're like, you're going to go through hard shit. No one's going to care. You're not going to get any recognition or awards. And that's what I internalized my entire career. We were the quiet professionals. That came with a big price. So, through the 90s, operations, contingency operations in the Middle East. If you don't know, 5th Special Forces Group is has the Middle East as their area of operation. And I had a great time. It consumed me. And I can now say that that was negative, because a relationship, a wife, a divorce, another wife, all of that personal side was just irrelevant to me. I was absolutely married to the action special forces in the military. And, I really didn't get a memo that that was a bad thing. It was coming to a head. I had gotten a DUI in the mid-90s, and it was the kiss of death. You want to talk about some resiliency, and I've never put it this way. I had to beat I had to do 2 appeals. One, to get a letter removed, which would be the kiss of death for promotion, which it eventually did. And I also got QMP. They were going to kick me out for that. This was the exact time the Army, I can't speak for the rest of the military, was changing to, a new way. A lot of those senior guys from Vietnam that had a ton of DUIs, unfortunately, they were pretty much getting asked to leave. I went to treatment for my first time. I started in AA, and all I did was check the block so I could get back in the action. But, I did not drink for a while, but it was definitely not a good sober place, and it did not help any of the relationships in my life, family, especially mom and the first and second wife. And I'm not proud to say that, just to kind of gloss over that. I was a horrible companion because I was married to the Army. Late 90s, actually, I was, I got all that removed from the DUI, was making rank between E7, Sergeant First Class, and Master Sergeant, which then I would be a team sergeant on a Special Forces team. And then, of course, 9/11 happened. 2 big things part of that. Yes, 5th Group was the initial force going in with the CIA. Everybody knows that now. But I didn't go. There was 2 small elements left behind, and we had been doing other things. It was an assignment within that unit, but we were detailed to other people around the U.S. And that kind of stung. And then when the first casualties came back, who I knew and had spent my entire career with, it was like, what the hell? I'm not doing my part. I think I was able to get past that for now, but that dug in as guilt, shame, resentment. And the other thing was that I knew I was going to be gone. I had just gotten married, and probably for the wrong reasons. Her and I, it's my second wife, we're divorced, and we have a son together, and he's doing great. We do great, and he's a freshman in college. But back then, I knew what was in the future, and I don't think I prepared her for it. I mean, I was going to be gone regardless of 9/11. After 9/11, it was off the chart. Okay. You're either training or you're somewhere in the Middle East. I was an Iraq guy. I didn't go to Afghanistan. So 3 tours later, I mean, if you've heard me talk about it, I was just, somewhere between a catastrophe, a hot mess, and someone ready to drink themselves to death, be homicidal or suicidal. So the Army did me a favor. Two or three great men in my unit saw it for what it was and did their best to get me a medical. They did not have to. That goes to, a passion that I have today for this stuff. They could have let me be one of the statistics, and I can tell you honestly, it wouldn't have ended well. So I got off, walked off Fort Campbell in 2008, completely disillusioned, and some other stuff started happening on the periphery. Guys I knew so close who had worked for me started getting killed in action. We lost some people to suicide just before I got out. And I mean, and all I would do was drink. Someone introduced me to some pills. I ended up being a benzo guy, did not know how dangerous that was mixing with alcohol. I am now a recovering alcoholic and a recovering drug addict, 6.5 years on the alcohol, 10 years on the pills. I was never a pill guy because you can't take those in the military. That's a sign of weakness. So that's how sick I was. I just kicked around that part of the central US, a buddy and I opened a training business, and I thought, let's just do this, take these skills and train people in the US. Thank God I didn't go out of the US to contract. That wouldn't have ended well. And I did not think, I was almost hopeless. The soldier in me just kept me going day to day. But then there were times where I was lost in depression and in a closet in my empty apartment. And, I wouldn't call it, but yes, suicidal. I would still live out, a outlaw lifestyle, like on the road with road rage, or, thinking I'm still in the center of Baghdad. But I kept it in, I kept it in perspective and was still able to be a firearms trainer. And I speak of that today because that's just a stigma. Thank God I didn't cross any lines. That second wife got divorced. They moved back with my son. He was born literally as I was. I got to come back to see him, but he was born in 2003. And, we had to deal with the pregnancy while I was in Baghdad and she was back here. And, everything went great. But then that division for those next two tours in 2004, 2005, 2006, really. And my son doesn't remember it, but those immediate years after 2007, 2008, as I retired in 2009, it was horrible. And I mean, she didn't have to let me at times, but we were able to handle things custody wise, or there were times where I just couldn't go see him because they thought I was so crazy, and they were probably right. We got divorced and they moved back to this area of the country, the central northeast. And I finally got done kicking around. I think it's a God thing. I'm a spiritual person. Don't talk too much about formal religion, but I do believe in God. And I just said, man, I got to get physical. I got to get geographically close to my son. And as sick as I was, I said, or something helped me say that I'm not going to have the same thing happen with my father. But man, I was getting worse and worse. And lo and behold, the last thing I needed was now how unique is this? The last thing I needed was a relationship in 2012 when I moved back to this northern tip of West Virginia and the Western PA, Pittsburgh area. I walked in to open a bank account, and that lady that helped me is my wife today. So,
How metaphoric. Can I just say how metaphoric, right? She's gonna hold your investment, be your investment person, right? Invest in you. I mean, come on now, dude. This is like, right? If that was in a movie, they'd go, oh, that's over the top. That's on the nose.
Oh my gosh. And then it didn't go well because I'm not this type of guy, but this mental, the substance, it had turned me into a narcissist or an out of control drill sergeant. I knew everything. I knew what everyone else should think. Somehow I was able to hold it together for the first few dates, but then of course, late 2012, 2013, the wheels came completely off. And I almost died in Pittsburgh, VA, or several small emergency rooms around here in the upper Ohio Valley. And I don't know if I should I even had a heroin overdose.
Mhm.
Why I thought twice about that is there's some folks in the family that may not know about that, but hey,
That makes
they-
sense, though.
yeah,
It makes sense. You kept looking for a solution and to hurt yourself. So you're
Yeah.
gonna have to do something a little bit stronger.
I had never done heroin. Couldn't
That's
even
right.
shoot it in my arm.
Yeah, because
So,
you're ambivalent about living.
and
Ambivalent about living. That's
and I
what
thought it, yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought that I was going to get a high. In my mind today, I know that I was trying to kill myself.
that is practicing death. Everybody
Yeah.
that does heroin, I ask them, what's your drug of choice? They go, heroin. I go, oh my God, that's the best drug to practice dying on.
Yeah.
Because it takes
Every time every time in treatment, I mean, I do not mean this in a mean way. The addicts, those addicts, and I don't mean it, they would make fun of me or call me out. They're like, oh my God, you're mixing benzos and alcohol. And I'm like, of course, I'm like, well, you're a heroin addict. And then that happens. And of course, the karma didn't come back around. I literally woke up the next day in an ICU across the river in East Liverpool, Ohio, close to where that train derailment happened. And Janet was sitting there like she really wanted to. I thought she should have left me. The first thing I asked is, can we go to a beer store? I think I need, a 6-pack to knock this off. Completely lack of no perspective and context on what just happened. That's how sick I was in July of 2013. Got out, still tried to drink myself to death for about less than another month. Our son got married, our son, one of our older sons, and I was able to make it to that. But when I came back from Maryland and his wedding in August of 2013, I just said, I got to do something. Here's another funny one. So I walk in an outpatient program where I started kindergarten in Steubenville, Ohio. My mom worked over in Ohio. And I walk in and I'm like, you know what? I don't know if you're going to be able to do, I got a lot of treatment facilities on my record. I don't know if this outpatient stuff is going to work for me. And thank God, 2 of the ladies just come across the room and I thought they were going to just, bum rush me. They should have. And they're like, yeah, sit down, Francis, just sit down. 6 weeks later, yeah, I'm very humbled. But man, that's when the hard shit started. And, you got to deal with JD, you got to deal with John, you got to deal with the upbringing, the military, anything. And I didn't want to. I stayed sober. I did everything I was told, AA, NA, whatever I had to do, at least something every day, sponsor. A couple years later, it really hadn't changed anything because I really wasn't putting in the deep-rooted work. And that's when I found out, again, I may sound like I speak negative of the VA, but I don't. I just tell you of an experience that may have just not been positive. Around here, it was just too cookie cutter. Totally didn't work for me. Go in, check the block, go to an outpatient group. Again, all those people need it. And I hope a lot of them survive. But again, it wasn't getting deep. So 2015, I had a relapse, didn't work. I quit, but then I was full on suicidal. Thank God a psychologist had remembered me and took a little bit of interest. I'd blown her off for probably 6 months to a year. I called her, came in, got an eval, and she sent me right to a residential treatment. At that time, one of the best in the country along the East Coast. And holy shit. So, Suzi gave me that, big intro. So let's see, jumping from 26,000 feet, going into Baghdad when it was just a beehive of activity in early 2003, on and on and on. Nothing compared to when I hit the ground after that and had to get on with life. Literally, it was the toughest thing that I've ever had to do. Survival school, getting beat, nothing compares. I had to face John every day, and I didn't get it right, but I got into therapy. For the last 7 years, individual therapy has been the best for me. And I tried to learn about myself and how I could relate better to people on the outside. And God, did I screw it up for about 3 to 4 years. And who gets it the most? The people we love. So I would come home, my version of, like, you know, you started out with talking about traffic. I would come back and rant to Janet for an hour or two at night about the Pittsburgh traffic because they didn't know what they were doing. Well, I was still sick. I had more work to do. I never gave up. Oh man, I mean, she was probably ready to kick me out at times again, but we just kept working. She got involved. She started doing advocacy, helping spouses, and talking about it at her work. She works I probably can't say. So, but she has gotten in as a side part whenever I'm doing something, if she can, or she's right there beside me telling her portion of the story. So today, you know, fast forward, you know, the 12-step program sayings, if I wrote a check a long time ago when I first started sobriety, I wouldn't even come close. That's an understatement. Because, you know, that tough guy, and he's still in there and he can still be tough, but today it's about being a decent, present, mindful human. Be a father, be a, you know, whatever I can be to wife, family, especially the grandkids. And, you know, we have a small business. We do training in the community for, you know, shooting and tactical stuff, self-defense, active shooter. But our big thing is the advocacy on mental wellness, and anything that we can do for people in crisis, all the way to, you know, I think there's a lack of understanding, like that part that 2016 part, when people get out of the doctor or they get out of treatment or they've done this for a year, man, it doesn't stop there. It just doesn't. I can't emphasize that enough. So I hope I didn't steal all the time.
No, you steal it. I'm offering you all the time.
You are so awesome.
All the time. You said so many wonderful things. And if we don't tell our stories, how will people know that it's possible? Yeah. Right? It's like a flashlight that people think, oh, here, let me show you where to walk. No, don't do that, because they're not going to walk there alone. You go like this, you put the flashlight on yourself and say, keep your eye on me. Let's go. Yeah. Don't lose sight of me.
I don't know how many times I've had that conversation this last week. And, you know, I got to get past some resentments I've been involved with nonprofits and service organizations since I got out. Some of it good, some of it bad, some of it good and bad on my part as well. But we have a lot of startups around here, and it's like, do this, do that, do this. And finally, I have a little, whether I, write it down or remember it. It's like, what's your attraction? You know, what is your engagement? How do you get close to them? How do you get them in? And they usually don't have a plan. And if it is, it's a cookie cutter approach or they stole it from someone before. And I'm like, why don't you just have someone that's been through it talk about it? And, you know, they act like you just hit them in the nose. It's like, my God, that would be and you are so right. And I don't know what's so hard about this. You know, telecommunications, tell a friend.
Yeah. You're right. I don't know either, because, you know, well, one of the bits of training, I mean, I think of the military training, first of all, I think of your childhood training. We oftentimes, and I was guilty of this as a parent, is I'm going to show you, tell you, train you what to do. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to tell you and show you how to do it. So that's one aspect that's a problem, and kids see it instantly. Oh, you're a hypocrite. I thought you were my parent, but you're actually my hypocrite. I just saw your picture on Wikipedia, you know, under the word hypocrite. So then you become a therapist, and then you can be a professional hypocrite. You can take the Hippocratic oath. I go, no. We take the hypocrite oath, the hypocritical oath. And so the point is, I get to tell you what to do and help you. You poor struggling being, we're going to save you and help you and fix you. Oh, I don't have to do it, but I'll help you do it. So then I can do that. And you never know my story, right? So you don't know anything about me. I can tell you to quit smoking, to quit drinking, lose 100 pounds. I can do that. And I can go home and smoke a carton of cigarettes, drink 2 bottles of wine, and eat a goddamn cheesecake myself. I'm allowed to, I get a license that gives me to do that. You don't, because you have the story, because you did the work, because you're not a professional. You're a decent human being. You just described yourself. A decent, principled, caring human being. That's your cred. That's your cred. And all the struggles, all the failures, and getting up and struggling again and do it again, and all the self-disclosure, which I'm not allowed to do. God forbid I make it about me. So if I disclose to you, I've just made it about me. And then you won't trust me because I'm supposed to have all my shit together. It's crazy. It's crazy thinking, and it's not even how people work. It's not
maybe it's so lost because it is so hard. I'll speak for the males. I mean, you've tried to drag a man into therapy. So if they don't know about it, then don't know about that concept. Maybe that's why, we keep getting it wrong. But you said something in the last 6 years. I don't know how many times that I walked in to the therapist, and a simple situation out in society or culture or public, I either had no perspective or had gotten it completely backwards. And I was probably ready to say something or act or do something stupid. And that would right the ship, and I could go back out and at least try to be, kind and peaceful and a human. So who wouldn't want to do something like that? Who wouldn't? And so you say superpowers. I mean, to obviously, I don't think ever total control, but to have control over some of this stuff is, I mean, to me, priceless.
Yeah.
So,
and what you emulate and what you've done and continue to do, and I see you do it every Tuesday night on the MVP virtual huddle, is you talk about what you're still doing that day, that hour, that minute. And you're one of the senior people there, and I don't mean just your age, what you've accomplished in the military. I watch how those women and men look to you, especially the veterans. I know the athletes don't always know exactly what you're talking about with all the letters and stuff like that, but they get who you are, and they're like, holy shit, do you know who he was? Do you know what he did? And if he can talk about that and own that shit and then do that, I want to do that. Right?
Thank you.
I want to be Spider-Man. I want to do that.
I hope the athletes know how I think the same thing times 1,000 of them. I am just in awe of what they do. I've always been a football or, follow football guy, but I am just, when some of them speak, and anyone over the last, and I tell everyone this a lot, is a lot of treatment centers, some, weird, crazy places. I am so humbled to hear the things on those, not just athletes, but the veterans. I just like, so that old saying, for people in the future, if you don't know why you're on there, you don't feel like you're on, you need to be on here, almost not 100% of the time, you'll hear something that you can relate to or another human you can relate to. And I thought I was just, sometimes you just don't know what to say, but at least they're there. The seed has been planted and they have a chance. That is awesome.
And it's this consistent weekly, daily. Yeah. So one of the, I've been involved with creating, retreats for veterans, and it's wonderful, and I appreciate it, and I love doing it, and it's a wonderful week to be able to offer and give. And it's a week out of 52. What are you going to do with the other 51 weeks? Like, how are you going to continue to do the daily practices without some support? And so what I love is that I know every week we've got a moment that JD is gonna be able to do the things I can't do and say the things I can't say. And I go, that's the key. That's the key. That
my
is
God.
key. You teared up every time you talked about mentors. Every talk about those men and women that you looked up to and you loved and you would die for. And I don't understand, especially for those of us that didn't get the parenting that we deserve because our poor parents had so much trauma. Where the hell do we think we're going to get it if we don't give it to one another now?
Yeah.
Right?
My last doc said, she pulled out a word which I use a lot in training is generativity.
Yes.
All of this mental, physical, spiritual, why should we keep it?
Right.
We have to give it back to the present and future generations. So
I tell people all the time, I'm very proud of being old. I love being, and people go, oh, you're not old. And I go, didn't I just tell you I like being old? Do not try to convince me I like it. And one of the things I learned from my native dad was the concept of a wise elder.
yes.
And the quickest way you destroy a culture, a family, a community, is make sure that you don't have any wise elders.
Yeah.
And the military too, right? And even the sports leagues, the legends, we call them the legends, right?
Yep.
And I always joke and say, yeah, I'm a wise ass elder. Like I'm that. I'm that. And it's true. When we step up, when we're willing to continue to grow and learn and own our shit and keep trying and keep doing, what do you think that does for those young people? Every time I go in, I say to my grandson, you want to do a push-up contest? And he's like, I don't know, Gma. I don't think I'm ready. It's like, right, it's that kind of fun, and I'm not going to stop.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I think when I say, I thought about it last night, I am that imposter syndrome. I think about when I say high functioning, high performing, that is just, it's not that perfectionist anymore. It's not that I have to be the best, but it's just like I run the best even well, and it's, managed and balanced, just running high octane. But yes, now you can do that for the little people when you're there, and I don't have to take naps anymore and, go spend money someplace. It's all, not all of it, but it's all getting close to being funneled right into where it's supposed to be, and the love too. That's, just can't say, obviously from 12-step to other wellness and, professional medicine, acceptance, tolerance, but sometimes, on a daily basis, that's just lip service. And this whole new love thing, love beat hate, I can't emphasize that enough. Now, in my current world, and again, I don't know how much longer, but, if I say that, it's like, and I do, and the police or, the students kind of look at me and I'm like, seriously, do you really want to go out? And if you have to, God forbid, take someone else's life, you don't, do you? Love beats hate every time.
That's right. You got so many other options before that one.
Absolutely.
Might as well use them all, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I agree with you 100%. And it's why we were talking last week that, love is a verb. It's what you do for yourself and others that actually helps to create the person you deserve to be. It's not your thoughts. It's not your feelings. I have those all day long. Most of them are not well, or they're just, old thoughts, old feelings that were given to me by someone else. What I do on a daily basis actually creates who I am and who I want to be and deserve to be. And so when I find somebody like you, and I didn't find you, you just kind of walked into our lives. Thank God we put the platform there. JD, it gives me that sense of I have support. See what's happening now?
Yes.
The therapist, the clinical director has support. I get to be on there. I get to call JD if I need something. I get to have right.
You're in trouble now. No.
Oh, I'm always in trouble.
How powerful is that? I mean, it's just, why can't we be here for one another? Subject matter expert, professional, or just friend to friend, and have those hard conversations. I'm hurting. I don't know why it's so hard anymore. It seems like we've had this explosion of mental health advertising, but sometimes when it comes down to brass tacks, in your local areas, that doesn't always get translated well.
Yeah, it's one thing to do the lip service of, oh, let's let go of the stigma. I'm like, well, that's probably an action,
Yeah.
not a title, and not just a saying, not just a slogan. It probably would help as all of us, self-disclosed our stuff like you just did and said, yeah, then the stigma is not, because we're all admitting, we're all sharing, right? We're mental health evolutionaries. That's what I like to call us. I don't trust revolution. It always comes back to what you were fighting against, and you become that again. It just never really works out. But in evolution, that's interesting to me, because that's forever changed. That's a change that can keep growing. And so that's what I like to think as we're starting the mental health evolution.
Yes. I had a Vietnam vet. They have been so powerful in my life. They have been the big push all the way from being a mentor to getting my head out of my butt and quit feeling sorry for me. But, oh gosh, brain fog later in the day. Where was I going with that?
Oh, I know, we were talking about evolution, the mental health evolution.
Yeah. Bill, unfortunately, he took his own life, and we knew that. He was around when I retired in the Kentucky area. Vietnam vet, probably did some intel agency work, and we sat down one day at a diner having coffee. We were close over guns and shooting, and we were talking about just this. And he had been a pastor. I think that may have been his cover, but he said something simple like replacement dynamics. I was kind of looking for a name of, I want to make some changes and get into this mental health and mental wellness. And I think he had some experience, and he said, well, we're replacing something, and now I've seen a few terms kind of similar to that. And it's like, yeah, you can change. You can take some stuff in there, pull it out, replace it. Maybe you have to keep it, put it in a catalog back up here somewhere, pull on it later. And, if that helps people think about it. And it's like, yes, absolutely.
That's a great way to think about it, because we replace things all the time. We replace batteries, right? We replace parts. So I think that's another great way to look at it. You said something very important that I'd like you to finish with, if that's okay. You said something to the effect of like, I used, or I trusted, or I knew I still had that soldier in me.
Oh yeah, thank you. And this is where and I feel this is delicate. I don't know if you can always say this in an open forum, but at some point, pro athletes, everyone on those calls has that toughness. Do you have to bring that out and have it part of your life that was the military or on the football field? No, but that toughness to get through something is still in there. We may have to break open some layers and help you, but that's what we're here for. That toughness is still in there. And obviously we have some examples in the last 2 weeks, and I just sit there in awe of how tough, or that they know that they can pull on that and hopefully they'll get through. And yes, and that's really the last 2 years. That's why, before you, there were people like you or Janet or some friends in their life like, well, what's wrong with taking it back up a notch in your, workouts? And when I say workouts, it's to be healthy and longevity, to keep doing this, not to look good, not to be the strongest guy. And yeah, that pulling back on that mental toughness helped kind of replace a few things up here that needed to be replaced. And, lo and behold, if you look at my Monday through Friday, my mornings kind of look like maybe physical training when I was in special forces. I mean, as far as timing and stuff, but guess what? It works for me. And then in mid-morning, man, I'm ready to go. And I have a good attitude. And that's so hard sometimes.
I know. It's like, to do what works. And my fear is, because I'm not a veteran and not in the military, I probably would cuss some officer out because of his hypocrisy, and I would have been thrown out in about a week. But besides that, that idea that you can still do that which worked for you someplace else. Like, okay, so now you're in the civilian world, and I know it's aggravating and irritating. It irritates me. And like I said, I'm not even in the military. And it's at this point that you can go, well, what worked for me was getting up early in the morning and working out, doing PT. Like, that worked for me. So why would I give that up? That worked for me. So why would I give that up just because now I'm this age, or I'm in this job, or I'm supposed to be this way, or whatever? And what I love about what you offer, JD, is you are doing what it is that works for you. You epitomize this idea of like, yeah, I get up and helps me out. I do that. And you don't even say, I like it. I love it. It's so much fun. I can't wait to do it. You just go, no, it works. Yeah. It's effective. That's what I think is one of the greatest things about the military, is you're supposed to do things that work. Am I right?
that aren't necessarily fun. You just turn, and I've kind of learned to hate this, but you just pick up that whole thing of embrace the suck with your buddies. And yeah, that's different out here because a lot of folks have no idea about the suck. So how in the hell can they embrace it? Right. But, most people on these calls, yes, they've had that, they've experienced, they're just in a place right now where that can't be pulled from, they can't see it. And I get it. That's one of the biggest things in 07, 08, 09. It was literally like I was walking around in a cloud and I just couldn't make good decisions. And some days I didn't have, I had pills in me, but I didn't drink. And I was just clouded in my decision making. Today, so far from the case, but if I don't put in the work, I can real quick have an emotional response, which will destroy everything for that 24-hour period.
That's right. We have a reaction versus the response. I used to say, like, I have to find a way to know that I don't have to get upset before the fight, during the fight, or after the fight. Right? That's the Bruce Lee way of thinking. Like,
yes.
Get upset? I thought I had to get, I'm half Italian. I thought I had to get upset before I had to fight. No, you don't have to.
I know.
Right? Or the dialogue out the conversation, or cleaning the house. You don't have to get upset before, during, or after. You can just do it. Just keep going. Just do it. You don't have to get upset. I went, what a concept.
Just being on that ebb and flow is so draining. And I was on it for a year. And I mean, I've been on it, in the last 7 years, but it's just like, wait, can I just go kind of more calmly through the day and be able to manage this stuff? And yes.
I can't thank you enough.
Oh, Suzi, I love you. You are so awesome.
Well, you know what they say in Al-Anon, you spot it, you got it. If
exactly.
You got awesomeness, you can't see mine.
So you point that finger across the room, there's 3 or 4 pointing back at you.
That's exactly right. So Mr. Awesomeness, let's get Janet and you on the next time. Let's do one in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. She would love it.
I adored her. When she came on to that Valentine Zoom that we had, I was like, oh, I want to know her. I want to hang out with her too.
You know what she said when I came up, and I'm stealing her office again because mine is in the basement and it's a disaster. She's like, oh yeah. And she cooked tonight. She's like, oh yeah, I'll clean up. You just go up and be a movie star.
I love that. Well, now tell her. So say, you know what? She just told everyone podcast that you're coming on next time, Miss Movie Star. So let her know. JD, bless you. Bless you for all the amazing, difficult work you do on yourself first, for yourself, so that you are there for your children and your grandchildren and everybody else that gets to meet you, even in the supermarket. So bless you for that. That's one of my areas that's hard for me to be in. So thank you for that. And then thank you for all the time that you give to everybody else, all the seeds you plant, all the time you just be with and don't have to fix or change. You just be with. So bless you for all of that and your wisdom.
Thank you and bless you. I do it. It's the right thing to do. And also there are a few of those Vietnam veterans that will chase me down.
That's right. That's right. They will.
If I don't keep paying it forward.
That's right. They'll be on you. All right, Jay, have a great weekend and week. Everybody, this is Be Crazy Well. The theme song is by Calvin Love. Make sure you check him out in his music. He let me use this for free. It's called Be Your Best Self. He's very cool
Oh,
songwriter.
wow.
So I'm really grateful to him always. And he's surfs. He's like an unbelievable, and a great dad. So everybody, until next time, and we'll bring Janet on. J.D. Morris, bless you, and good night,
Bless you.
everybody. And
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.